Tell me why the wine is special. Tell me why I can't get it anywhere else. Tell me about the history of the place. Tell me what they do with their family on Friday night and who these people are, right? And I think that that pertains to how we sell anything, whether it's, software or anything else. What makes you special?
I'm Jonathan Gandolf, and welcome to the Content Cocktail Hour, powered by Audience Plus. Our mission is to shake out the deepest secrets of B2B marketing professionals and stir up fresh conversation, all to help you connect your brand with the right audience at the right time. Let's raise a glass. Welcome back to a very special episode of the Content Cocktail Hour. This is Jonathan here, co-founder and CEO of Audience Plus. I'm thrilled to be joined by Haley Moore, founder of Acquire. Acquire is a business that helps other businesses execute high-touch events and market around food and drink. I'm so excited for this conversation. A little bit maybe outside of the typical strike zone for this show, but I think it's going to be hyper-relevant for B2B sales and marketing professionals, and I'm extremely passionate about the topic as well. So why don't I stop talking there? Haley, founder, CEO of Acquire, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of your journey and what Acquire is up to?
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, first and foremost. I started my journey in the restaurant business when I was 15. I was lucky enough to be taken on a trip to Paris that completely changed my life. I saw food and wine together for the first time, but beyond that, I saw service for the first time. And it was like a completely life-changing experience. And I sort of knew I wanted to spend my life doing that. So I spent 23 years in the restaurant business full time, doing everything from cooking to being a sommelier. So the majority of my career was spent as a sommelier and beverage director in some really beautiful Michelin restaurants in San Francisco. So in 2020, when the pandemic happened, I was actually a restaurant consultant. I had several restaurant openings all over the country. And, I thought I was going to be on airplanes opening restaurants and teaching people about wine. And obviously, that's not what happened. So Acquire, as a virtual events company, was born in March of 2020. We started shipping wine and cheese and charcuterie and, Michelin-level meals all over the country and meeting people online to create really engaging experiences. So we've shifted the model quite a bit since those days. Gone are the days of sad pandemic wine tasting. Thankfully, I think we can all remember plenty of those that we care to forget. And so, what we're doing now is really trying to apply hospitality to the space, but also be like a really high touch alternative for our folks in B2B marketing and help them sort of to connect with people in a way that is memorable, that leaves an impression, and that obviously, produces sales. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
There was a time and place when drinking wine with strangers on Zoom was pretty appealing. That's no longer that appealing to me. So kudos to you all for kind of evolving and finding a way to navigate through it all. Really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Well, Haley, I'm excited to dig into all of that and even maybe share a little bit of my own kind of hospitality background. But before we do that, the question we always ask all of our guests, and I think it's going to be an especially fascinating answer today. What are you enjoying drinking nowadays?
Yeah. And it's such a hard question to answer as a sommelier because you're like, it depends on what day of the week it is and who I'm with and obviously what I'm eating. But I'm sitting in my wine room, which this is real. This is a real background. This is my our drinking problem personified here. So I actually grabbed a bottle. This is Connubium. This is actually coming from Lazio. This is just outside of Rome. It's made by nuns, which is really cool. So there's a really amazing winemaker named Paolo Bea in the area. And he taught these women in this monastery how to make orange wine. So this wine is done using a little bit of skin contact. Orange wine is basically just white wine or that's made like red, meaning that there's a bit of time on the skins, still aromatically has the same sort of components of a white wine, but structurally has the body of a light body red. So super versatile wine, super delicious. You can also just drink it. We call this like a porch pounder too. It's, you can just pound it on your porch. You don't have to think too much about it, but it's super delightful. And I've tried to visit the monastery. You can't visit. There's no way to get in. So it's pretty interesting. But if you go to their website, you can see all the nuns like working the vineyard, which I think is pretty awesome.
Love that. A good story and delicious. My wife and I's favorite restaurant, they've always have a great wine list. They actually do like wine education and dinners paired together that we've gotten to do. That's been pretty awesome. They've had orange wines recently, and I was unfamiliar. I'm not a huge wine drinker, but was unfamiliar with that style and have tried a few of them and have enjoyed every one. So a little bit of education in that answer too. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, sommeliers have a love-hate relationship with orange wine. People are either obsessed with them or they think that they're just the worst thing ever. But what's cool about it is that, this winemaking technique dates back to Roman times, like ancient Roman times. So, it's history in a glass in more ways than one. Like I think for me, like wine's a storytelling device. It's a connector of people and places and time. And it can transport you. So I think like that's what makes wine interesting more than it just being a cool alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, I love that so much. So I have a little bit of background in the beer industry, and maybe I'll share that here in just a moment. But monks making beer, obviously there's a lot of history there with that as well. And it sounds like the Somms feel the way about orange wine as brewers feel about hazy IPAs, right? All of a sudden, hazy IPAs became extremely popular. Some people, very polarizing. Some people love them, some people hate them. So let me use that maybe as a jumping off point for some of this conversation. I started my career in B2B software at a company that was hyper growth, grew really fast, and was acquired by Salesforce in San Francisco near backyard. Stayed there for a while. It is interesting. Sometimes people call Salesforce an events company that sells software. And I think there's some truth to that. Like events are this extremely powerful device to sell just about anything, right? In that case, software. It always sounds crazy to say out loud, and it is crazy as I think back on it. But I left Salesforce to start a brewery with 3 other friends. There was a brewer that was extremely passionate about brewing. He was younger, but he was winning a ton of awards. He's kind of an up-and-comer in the space. He had no idea how to start a business, but wanted to start a brewery. And so myself and one of my other friends, we went and we helped with the business side of the brewery. And what was interesting is we took a lot of our B2B knowledge and we looked at the industry we were in. The brewery was in Kentucky, in greater Cincinnati, but technically in Kentucky. We might nerd out on this a little bit, and I've probably lost all the listeners already, but 3 tiers of distribution are required in Kentucky, which means you as a brewery have to sell to a distributor, and then the distributor sells to the retailer who sells to the consumer. And so we kind of looked at that, coming from the B2B software space, and we're like, wait, this is a B2B business, but nobody's actually treating it that way. And the prime anecdote I always give there is we did more digital marketing to distributors than I would argue any brewery in the country outside of the major Molson Coors, Anheuser, out of the major national breweries and international breweries in the country. We were doing as much marketing to distributors as we were the end consumer. We became one of the fastest growing breweries in the country, taking it from 0 to about 10 million in annual revenue, 30,000 barrels in 4 years. It was a ton of fun. But I think like we leaned on lessons from the B2B space in the kind of craft beer space. Now, I jumped back into software. Didn't want to spend my entire career in the beer space, but I jumped back into software. And I was very fortunate to work for a CMO who instilled in me, it's a phrase that I've stolen and used repeatedly, is that breaking bread is the best marketing strategy. In the software space, so many of us get obsessed with advertising and return on advertising spend and ROI and cost per click and cost per lead and cost per impression, and the list goes on and on. We're always trying to like game the system, but I swear there is nothing better than sitting down, and it is psychology, it's as tradition as old as time, but breaking bread, I truly believe is the best marketing strategy. So maybe that's a long way for me to brag about my experience a little bit, but I'm so curious in what you've built at Acquire. Like, when did you have that aha moment of like, this is not just a wine business or a food and beverage business, but this is something that can actually help other businesses grow? What was that moment where you're like, wait, this is actually a really big opportunity and something bigger than just food and beverage?
Well, first off, I think your strategy with the beer business and actually advertising and, sort of making the cause to distributors is something that is really special and that I don't think most people in the alcohol business are doing.
Thanks.
Love the wine business. I love the restaurant business. I spent my whole life there. They are my people. I speak their language to the truest degree of the word, but it's a little bit antiquated in the way that they do business, for sure. So I think what I've really learned, there's so many things in this space, is, it doesn't necessarily require a restaurant space to give the gift of hospitality. And I think I had my first aha moment, early on doing these virtual events where we were connecting with people in such deep ways. As a sommelier, it's my job to read my tables, to understand when you walk in the door, and by what you're saying and your nonverbal cues, what you're interested in, what you like, what will make you happy. My job is to obviously pair the wine and make sure that you have a great experience, but it goes beyond that, right? Every good sommelier is a hospitality person first. And I think for me, like, creating those exceptional moments can happen anywhere. They can happen on Zoom. And I think the event market, like you're saying, is so saturated that there's a million different events, and all of our clients are saying to us, oh God, I can't get people there. Like with these things that before, COVID, we used to have a million people want to come and attend. We'd have to take a wait list. Now we can't get anyone to come. So I think like our social bandwidth has changed and shifted. And yes, the importance of in-person is always going to be true. There's a reason why deals are closed over a table. Like you're saying, I think when you add a food and wine element, whether virtual or in person, people's shoulders come down, they relax into a space, you see them leaning in, you see them connecting. And I think like that's really what, for all intents and purposes, we're trying to sell at Acquire. Like, sure, we ship beautiful food and wine kits and we do all of these things, but it's really about connection and it's about creating memorable moments that make people feel something. I mean, I think in the world of a million events, if you can make somebody feel something, if you can make them feel seen, make them feel remembered, give them that gift of hospitality, that's really how you're going to elevate your brand, how you're going to make a mark with them. And obviously, like having a follow-up strategy post-event is something that we've also noticed is like so paramount. I mean, you can have this incredibly engaging experience, but then if nothing happens afterwards, you've lost the whole point. So we've really gotten involved with what happens before, what happens during, and then of course what happens after to make sure that we're kind of helping to maximize that impact.
It's so interesting in the B2B tech space, which that's what I'm going to keep referencing. That's what I know right now, at least. We always talk about scale. It's like, how do we make this initiative scale? And sometimes the things are successful because inherently they don't scale, right? I think that's so true for events. Like, businesses have entire teams dedicated to field marketing, right? They're trying to create an event in a box, right? And I've heard that before, an event in a box or, a playbook or a template where they can just like go have all these dinners. And there's some of that works and is probably a worthwhile endeavor. But I think some of what you're referencing, and you even said it, there's a million events, there's a million different people that can ship gifts, but it's that above and beyond touch that really makes them magical, right? And makes them extremely effective and worth that extra investment. Maybe what are some of the smaller touches or the pieces of hospitality that you've seen either your clients or others do that take a standard field marketing event and turn it into something bigger and more meaningful than that?
Absolutely. So, in Michelin restaurants, we take guest notes and it's like a little bit strange and feels a little bit stalkery. But, we know like where your daughter goes to college. We know how you like your gin martini. Like we know all of these weird things about you, only in an effort to create beautiful experiences for you the next time you return. So I think that's something that we've applied at Acquire and that's been really helpful for our clients is if we're doing a virtual event, we have someone from our team camera off taking notes. If we're doing an in-person event, the person who's there hosting the event is taking notes on everything that people say. And then we turn that over to our clients just in an effort for their sales folks to create a more personalized follow-up. So remembering also I think a really great hospitality marker is that it doesn't have to be expensive to be impactful. And often the most impactful things are actually really inexpensive or even free. Caring about somebody is free, being kind is free. But also like if we learn that Amanda likes almond milk lattes, and then you DoorDash her one the next morning as a thank you for coming to your event, that's a $5 spend. And you've shown Amanda you heard what she said, you've recognized her, you see her, and it makes her feel special. And it's a really, surprise and delight is what we talk about a lot in hospitality and restaurants. Like, how do you really take the wow factor and make people feel like completely blown away? And again, like looking for those opportunities to do that is how you're going to leave an impression for sure and really build those relationships.
It's fascinating. I love that kind of the balance of like, it doesn't have to be expensive to be impactful, right? I'm going to continue to geek out here. You and I shared some emails back and forth talking about the book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And there's an anecdote in there that the author shares where he was managing one of the best restaurants in the world and overheard a table saying, I can't believe we're going to leave New York without getting a hot dog, right? Or from a hot dog stand or whatever. And literally somebody from the restaurant overheard that. They ran out, got a hot dog, cut it up, drizzled it with mustard or whatever, and put it on a plate and presented it to them. And he was like, yeah, it cost us $5. And it was the most impactful thing they could have possibly done. So I love that. In the spirit of unreasonable hospitality, what's maybe the most unreasonable thing you've been a part of for that surprise and delight, or maybe you've seen somebody on your team execute?
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like surprise and delight can happen in so many ways, shapes, and forms. And I think it can be like the little things too. I remember working at Spruce. This is a Michelin restaurant in San Francisco. I ran the wine list there for a long time. And, this sweet German family, it was like during Outside Lands, which is this big concert event happens in San Francisco. And at the time, it was 2012, probably impossible to get a taxi. This sweet German family was visiting. They had their kids. They're couldn't get out of there. And, of course I was like, let me get my car. Let's go, and in the middle of service, I was had someone watch my station and drove them to their hotel near Fisherman's Wharf and came back,
so
Cool. So, I mean, again, I think hospitality is just a mindset. It's a way of choosing to move in the world. And it's being kind to others. I mean, it's really that simple. But yeah, I would say with the acquire in mind, we definitely are always kind of looking for those surprise and delight sort of techniques. We have an event coming up where we're planning to surprise and delight our guests in a really exciting way where they're all gonna, I don't want to ruin anything, but they're all gonna get a delivery at the same time as something that is like really fun while we're all on the call. So it's like things like that where we're really looking to sort of like
Wow.
pull out all the stops and, again, remembering it doesn't have to be expensive to be impactful is the big one.
The difference between good and great is 3 words. It's and then some, right? It's like you could just deliver a package, but it's like, no, we're going to deliver it while they're on the call all at the same time. Like that's that and then some magic. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Like we've talked a lot about your experience in hospitality, but you're building a business now and there's, real life, top line, bottom line, business building things there. What have you learned about founding and growing and scaling a business that has been surprising to you or maybe lessons for other founders and entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, I think remembering that nothing is linear, we really benefited from having a great product early on. And I can't say to you that like I stepped out of the restaurant business with the intention of creating a B2B marketing company. I mean, that was absolutely like if you told me that that's what I was going to do, I would have said had lost your mind. I mean, I did it as a complete knee-jerk reaction in a time where like our industry was suffering in a profound way. And I was like, we're not going back to work on April 7th, And so I created these packages and I started incentivizing private dining people to reach out to their corporate clients. I mean, it was all organic. I was employing out of work hospitality people at a time when they weren't, we created community in a really beautiful way. And our why was really profound. We were connecting people over food and wine at a time when isolation was required. So it's like, it didn't get much bigger than that for me. I think it became more difficult, to be honest, when people went back to work, because as everyone went back, we all were so exhausted from those sad pandemic wine tasting I mentioned before. So people went back to work in a big way and went back to in person. And we had to really shift the model and figure out how to be effective and how to be efficient and how to make sure that what we were offering is not what we were offering in 2020 and 2021. So the strategy changed dramatically. And I think, being patient with yourself as those things are happening. I like to run downhill. I think a lot of people who have an entrepreneurial spirit, like for things to happen and like for them to happen fast. And when you have an idea and you believe in it, you're like, okay, let's go, And sometimes it's just being patient and letting the change happen as it will and letting it unfold as it will. And, we're finding a really nice sweet spot now where people are seeing the impact of virtual events specifically. They're seeing how important they are and what a great touch point they are for those in between those in-person events. We still do in-person events. We offer a ton of things that we can help people with all over the country. But the virtual is really, I think, something that people are coming back to as a really powerful tool. So being patient and just allowing it to sort of unfold as it will has definitely been one of my biggest lessons.
Yeah, I love there's a few things in there. Community building from the get-go was really big. Having a really important and powerful why. That's a step that you just can't skip. And then like the patience that you mentioned and controlling what you can control. You're exactly right. Like I love to run downhill, right? Like sometimes the cliche of like, I'm a hammer, everything's a nail. Like I just want to go around like solving problems as fast as possible. And like, I'll brute force it if I need to, like I don't care. And sometimes that's not healthy for me or the problem that I'm trying to solve, but knowing when and where to kind of exert that energy to run downhill, I think is really important for founders and entrepreneurs. Really appreciate that insight. Hey, what's a maybe unpopular opinion that you have as it pertains to sales or marketing in the space that you've learned over the last couple of years?
I think as far as sales go, I relate everything to restaurants. So I'm sorry, I will continue.
All good.
I'll do it again. When you're teaching waiters about wine, you're teaching people how to sell something. I always said people relate to people, not tasting notes. And this is something I see on virtual events. Like we'll do a webinar and people will want to pull up a deck. Like decks are a giant bummer. They kill the mood. I get that they're a necessary evil, but it's just like, they pull up the deck and it's this very technical presentation of facts and everyone starts to glaze over and you watch everyone check out and you're like, oh God, we're losing them. It's the same thing when a server is like, this wine is medium bodied with notes of cherry and strawberry. It's like, okay, no, tell me why the wine is special. Tell me why I can't get it anywhere else. Tell me about the history of the place. Tell me what they do with their family on Friday night and who these people are, right? And I think that pertains to how we sell anything, whether it's, software or anything else. What makes you special, right? Like it's about the relationships, it's about the people behind the product, and it's about what makes it better than everything else. So people relate to people, not tasting notes is going to be my unpopular opinion, and decks are a bummer.
I can agree with both of those. And it's fascinating. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but you did this when you shared what you're enjoying drinking nowadays earlier. What you highlighted was the process and the people behind the process, how it's made, and that orange wine is different. And you mentioned the porch pounder, like the time and place, like that experience. I don't know if you mentioned tasting notes or not, but those are all things that like I vividly remember. And so that was a very like real world example of exactly that. Cool stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I learned early on as a sommelier. That's why I became a sommelier, was because I noticed that like I could stand at the table longer. I could create more connected moments. Like wine was this sort of storytelling device. And the more that I knew about it, the more I could create moments that were special for others, but also like create those sort of connected moments. So I think that's what wine is really intended for. Like, yes, it's delicious, but also it's about connecting people.
That's awesome. Well, Haley, if people want to connect with you or make special moments for their business, what's the best place to learn from you or learn more about Acquire?
Yeah, so we are pretty heavy on LinkedIn, Haley Moore, also Acquire. And then, yeah, we can be reached at our website as well, acquire-wine.com.
Love it. Well, Haley, thank you so much for joining us today. Really fun conversation, really fascinating conversation. Hopeful for some collaborations in the future. To all of our watchers, all of our listeners, I know you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, same place. Cheers. Thank you for joining the Content Cocktail Hour powered by Audience Plus. If you want to see more episodes or more resources curated for your role, join us at audienceplus.com. See you next time, same place. Cheers.